Live.
Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Clayton. I'm part of Los Gringos TV, and today we're gonna give you 16 tips on how to speak and learn Spanish.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Ford, also Los Gringos TV. Tons of ways to help yourself learn Spanish. There is something that really helped me out, and I would recommend it to everyone. Date someone who speaks Spanish. Date a Latina, date a Latino. Relationships, you go through a lot of emotions and a lot of scenarios, and when you're arguing or going through something exciting, you can control your emotions, the emotions of a relationship in Spanish. You're really getting it.
It's definitely true. When you fight a Latina, you're gonna learn today.
You're gonna lose against a Latina in English or Spanish. It doesn't matter the idioma. You're always gonna lose.
Tip number 2, try reading Spanish out loud with a native speaker, so they can sit next to you while you read any kind of book. It could be a children's book. As you read out loud, they can help correct you. You get to see how it's spelled, pronunciate, and obviously listen. So you're stimulating those 3 senses right there: your mind, your eyes, your ears, and that's a very good trick that helped me become fluent in Spanish.
Another thing I did was I studied music. I got into local music here in Latin America. Well, not right here in Latin America, in Utah, but yeah, when we were traveling, I would look up lyrics and then read the lyrics along and memorize the music. And I actually just found an app called Lyrics Training where you can watch YouTube videos from popular songs in that language and play games getting the lyrics right until you get to the next level. So highly recommended Lyrics Training.
All right, so I would highly recommend finding a mentor. Learning another language is a really, really difficult task, and it's always nice to have someone there that can coach you. You can ask them questions at any given point in time, and they're there and they're excited to help you. Because it can be a lonely process. When I was first starting out, I had someone who was coaching me constantly, and I could always hit them up at any point in time of the day, and they would be excited, be like, yeah, you say it like this. They'd send me audio notes, etc. So find yourself a mentor.
All right, next tip and trick: consume content in that language. It kind of seems kind of obvious, but it's very easy to consume content in your own language. It's very familiar. It's very easy, but you got to create friction. You got to create, we good? You got to create friction. You got to do things that stretch your brain. Consume content. Download podcasts. I really recommend one called La Casa Rojas. It's made by a Peruvian guy who has an English. He has an English school he has a Spanish school in Minnesota. So he's been living here for years. But his excellent Notes in Spanish is another really good podcast. Obviously music, obviously movies, Netflix, YouTube. YouTube is a great resource for learning another language. Find content creators who make bilingual content.
There's also one called the news in slow motion. You can watch the news or listen to the news in slow motion, which is pretty helpful.
Okay, that's cool. I just learned that one.
Speaking of content, you can just go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Most of our videos are in Spanish, so there you go. Consume some of our content in Spanish. Next tip is an ongoing list of phrases, or in my case, jergas, slang. In Peru, they say jergas for slang. There's just something about going and writing something down, even if, obviously you never, not that you never go back and read it, but that you're not going to look at it every day. But something about having an ongoing list. I have an ongoing list of jergas peruanas or interesting words or phrases that I learn. It's important to realize that this is an ongoing process. Learning a language, I think, never ends.
Yeah.
And so having this ongoing list, I think I'm like year 10 now, and I just wrote down 2 words yesterday. I think I'm on like 3 pages.
That's awesome. When I first started learning Spanish, I had a notebook about this big, the perfect size to slip right in my back pocket, and I had a pen. I walked around every day for my first 6 months learning Spanish with that little notebook. And every time someone would say something, I'm like, what was that word? And I'd pull it out and I'd write it down, whether it was a word or a phrase or a dicho or a jerga.
It's a really good tip. And when I say 3 pages, I mean front and back on a full notebook, and I have obviously tons of different columns. So if you can imagine, it's a lot of words. So that's my tip.
All right, back to the apps. We're in 2020, so I think there's 3 apps that everyone should learn if they're very serious about learning a language. Right now, I'm using these 3 to learn Portuguese. They're Duolingo, Babbel, and Pimsleur. Duolingo is a great free app based out of Pittsburgh. Shout out Duolingo. To get a base for a language. You can learn things like the cat has blue shoes or I went to the restaurant on Tuesday. It's a really good base for starting a language. A little bit intermediate would be Babbel, that gives you real life conversation scenarios, real dialogue that you will have if you travel to a certain country. And the third and the best by far, in my opinion, is called Pimsleur. Pimsleur was a linguist back in the day who developed this method of learning languages, and it's so good that actually all the government agencies in the United States use it, the FBI, the CIA, all of them, to learn languages fast. What it does is it gives you 5 levels of a language, for example, me with Portuguese right now, with 30 different 30-minute lessons where you're just listening and talking out loud the entire 30 minutes, and it's gone like that. And before you know it, you're speaking Portuguese. I've only been studying for 2 months, and I did a Facebook live video or an Instagram live video yesterday with a buddy talking in Portuguese the entire time. So it's crazy how well it works.
Right. So this one is a really, really good one. And it's really important, especially when learning Spanish. You have to choose your identity. In the Spanish-speaking world, we have tons of different cultures, tons of different dialects, accents, etc. And it can be confusing and overwhelming in the beginning. So it's important to kind of hone in on one. Me honing in, originally I honed in on Mexican Spanish, but then converted into Argentine Spanish. But it's not the same when you hear like ¿qué pedo versus ¿qué más versus ¿qué onda? ¿Qué pasó? Like you hear all these different phrases and it can get confusing, and other subcultures speaking Spanish can be confused as well. So hone in, choose one identity. I chose Argentine Spanish. Stick to that and then work to branch off. That will be really, really helpful in your Spanish learning process.
Cool. Yeah, change the language on your phone. Change the language on your phone. Everyone has their phone in their hands all the time. It's embarrassing how much my phone is in my hand. It's probably embarrassing how much you have your phone in your hand. You have your phone in your hand right now. You're watching this. Change.
It could be on a laptop.
It could be a laptop. Change your laptop to Spanish. Change your phone language to Spanish. That will automatically change some of the apps automatically to Spanish as well. But the ones that don't change automatically, change those. The ones you use the most: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Change them all in Spanish. We navigate through our phones and through our favorite apps so seamlessly and really without thinking that you're not going to get lost completely in your phone. You already kind of know where everything's at, and it's a real good way, especially for beginners, to change those things immediately into Spanish. You already know what they are, so it's kind of like muscle memory or like image memory. I don't know how you call it, but very, very impactful from the very beginning.
Nothing like having your phone get stolen and your phone find your phone being in Spanish and trying to log into your Apple ID when it's in Spanish. That's stressful. My next tip is mimic and imitate sounds, obviously, and kind of like what Dustin was talking about, the accent. So a good example we talk about among the boys and in the group is there's certain words. For example, us as Gringos, for some reason, we always change O's in Spanish to A. Classic example, Los Angeles. It's actually Los Angeles, like if you want to say it in English, Spanish, Angeles. Tijuana, there's no A there, it's a Tijuana. Puerto, sometimes we always say Puerta, like Puerta Vallarta. It's not Puerta, it's Puerto Vallarta. And so...
no, it's Puerto Vallarta.
That's what I'm saying, Puerto, not Puerta.
Ah, okay. Sorry.
So when you're around native speakers, kind of just listen, Listen first, mimic and imitate. It's not entiendo, and kind of the O cuts off. And so listen and imitate and mimic sounds and accents when you hear them, and try to copy that when you're practicing and talking.
All right. Probably the best thing you can possibly do is travel, full immersion. I traveled all around Latin America, learning on the fly. I'll say that's why that I don't have a distinct accent. I'll just blame it on that because I talk like a straight up gringo. But But when you're traveling, you can hear different dialects and different accents from different regions of different countries and different countries compared to others. I've met people who have only ever visited Mexico, and then when they visited Chile or Paraguay, they couldn't understand a word anybody was saying because the accents are so different. So I think when you travel, you really get an ear for the language. And if I could recommend trying to learn an accent that's more neutral, just to start your base, I would recommend Bogota, Colombia, very neutral, or Ecuador.
All right. Mine is invite people to correct you. You know, at the end of the day, you're here to learn. You are trying to learn constantly. What? I thought that was mine. Anyway, invite people to correct you. One thing off of the last tip that I had mentioned, where it was choose your identity, also choose someone that you'd like to sound like. You know, you can find specific characters or personalities online, consume their content, and work to imitate the things that they say, their gestures, mannerisms, etc. But my point was to invite people to correct you. Super, super important, because sometimes people are kind of afraid to correct you and don't want to hurt your feelings. But this is a learning process. No feelings involved. You're going to do this. You got this. Ford, last round.
Last tip from me is do a homestay. Most other countries offer, I mean, I would assume probably all countries offer some sort of homestay. Some of them are through programs, language learning programs. Some of them are through schools. Some of them are just on their own, kind of homestay programs. If you completely, like Chad said, full immersion, well, full immersion goes to your house as well, where you lay your head at night. Back to the household, la casa. Si estás hablando español, if you're speaking Spanish in casa, starting and ending your day, great practice. And you learn very quickly. I lived with a Costa Rican family for 5 months starting off. Everything. You need more toilet paper? Well, you got to learn how to say you need more toilet paper. You don't like your eggs that salty? Well, you better learn how to tell your mama. In my case, mi mamatica, my Costa Rican mom, no me gustar los huevos tan salados. And, she understood. Homestays, recommended.
All right, my next tip is kind of going hand in hand with what Dustin said. Being open and being humble, to this learning process is, along with asking to be corrected, is asking how words are spelled. Spanish is awesome because it's not like English, and that almost every word is exactly sounds or is spoken exactly how it is written. There are some cases where the H or the G is silent, but for the most part, every Spanish word, exactly how it's written, is how it's pronunciated and spoken and read. And so
there's no such thing as spelling bees in Spanish.
It's pretty easy to spell.
It's very phonetic language. As soon as you know how to spell a word, the pronunciation, you know how to say the alphabet, you'll be able to say any word.
Right.
In Spanish. Yeah.
That's why Spanish is super cool. So ask how words are spelled and learn that trick.
Yeah, another thing with being around more native speakers is play team sports. Maybe it could be a pickup soccer game while you're in Costa Rica, like Clayton did when we were traveling through Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. Or when I went to Spain, I'm a hockey player, so I found out that FC Barcelona had an ice hockey team. So I took all my gear and I ended up playing with a bunch of Spaniards and Swedes. Although I probably learned more Swedish in that 4 months, it's another method. But yeah, Dustin?
All right, and last but not least, to sum it up, the final tip, number 16, is be patient. One of the main reasons why people never get to fluency is because they just get frustrated, they're embarrassed, and they just think that they can't do it. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. It's going to take a really, really long time, at least 2.5 years to get to speak the language fluently. So be patient, We've been through it, we all know how it works. And that's one of the best tips that we could possibly give is be patient. You're eventually going to get it. Don't make the same mistakes twice. So remember, we are Los Gringos TV. We upload content in Spanish, but sometimes in English to inspire, create these bridges and not walls. So follow us on all social media at Los Gringos TV. And we'd love to hear you in the comments. So nos vemos Muy pronto.
Share your practices. If you're learning Spanish and you've had success and we forgot to mention something, please feel free to share them below so we can incorporate them into our next round of tips.
All right.
We didn't think of everything, obviously.
All right, everybody.